When we speak about virtuous leadership, we obviously speak about the virtues I just mentioned, the human virtues. But the truth is that we need to speak a little bit about what we call the biological temperament, because each one of us, we have a biological temperament, and we build virtues, we build character on the foundation of this biological temperament. I mean, the process of developing the virtues of character depends very much on what our temperament is. We don't build character in the air. We build character on the very structure that is a biological structure for a temperament. So this temperament is something that you have inherited, that you must not change, that you must love your temperament. You must not have a desire to change your temperament. That won't be good, because it is something you're born with, and it is something that is good in itself. You have to respect the temperaments of the others, but you have to love your personal temperament very much. And you will die with all the strength and all the flaws, the limitations of your own temperament. You understand that your temperaments inclines you towards in a certain direction, and you think this is not right for me. It's not right in these circumstances to act according to my temperament. So you put in practice, you ask your virtue to compensate the weakness of the temperament. So the virtues are here to tell you, look, what your temperaments wants to do now, it's not the right thing. But you have me here, the virtue, and you can act through me in order to compensate that weaknesses of the temperament. Each temperament has a virtue that is a challenge. And if you practice that virtue, I promise you, you will make incredible steps forwards in your life. That virtue that is the challenge for your very specific temperament is the virtue you will need to practice with emphasis during all your life. Because this virtue is a door. If you open that door, all the other virtues will come in. You should not fight in order to develop all the virtues. You should fight fundamentally to develop one virtue that is the challenging virtue for your specific temperament. And if you do that, what's going to happen? You open the door to all the other virtues. If you're phlegmatic and you develop magnanimity, I promise you, all the other human virtues will come with it. If you're a sanguine and you develop the virtue of endurance, I promise you, all the other virtues will come with endurance. If you're melancholic and you develop the virtue of audacity, you become an extraordinary human being. And if you're a choleric and you develop the virtue of humility, you are just incredible. People will love you because they will see you're happy, you're a very effective human being, and you communicate very well. So remember that you have your temperament. Each temperament is challenged by a very specific virtue, and you have to know about that virtue. Your temperament is just one aspect of your personality. It's your biological inclination. It's not you. It's just a part of yourself. Your character is much more about you than your temperament, because it's what you have been developing during years, a character. It's the consequence of the exercise of freedom, your character. So you are much more your character than your temperament. You follow me? This idea of a personality test, when people have in mind biology, it's crazy. It's totally crazy. It's not you. It's not your personality. It's just your biological inclination. But you are much more than a biological product. You have freedom. You have character. So it's very important here that we get the notions right, because there is a complete confusion in this sphere. None of us can say, I've done this because this is my temperament. This is just to say, I have no character, guys. Sorry. I have no spirit. I'm just a thing. I'm just a material being. You see, none of us has the right, even the kids, the children, and the daughters have the right to say, I did this because this is my temperament. We have to explain the boy and the girl that, no, that's not right. You have also a character, and you have to develop your character. You have to be a real human being. So you have people who say, you're a biological product. You are only temperament. These are the determinist people, the materialist people. And you have other people, they are the opposite. They say there is no temperament. There is only virtues, only spirit, no biological foundation for life. And these people are also very dangerous because what's going to happen? When they see you phlegmatic, they will say, the lazy guy. They're totally wrong. It's not laziness, it's phlegmatism. You understand? They make a confusion between morality and biology. It's very dangerous. When they see you choleric, they say, pride. It's not pride, it's cholerism. When they see a melancholic, they will say egotism. Because melancholic people are very much in their own spheres, thinking about themselves, their feelings, they are self-absorbed by their sentiments, by their feelings, by their thoughts. And someone who knows nothing about temperaments will say, well, this guy is egotic. This egoism. It's not egoism. It's melancholy. It's a biological thing. You see, the difference is very important. So the people that are voluntarists, who deny the science of temperament, they fall in those false ideas, which is the complete confusion between the physiological and the spiritual. When they see a phlegmatic, they say lazy. It's not lazy. When they see a sanguine, they say superficiality. It's not the same thing. A sanguine, it's biological inclination. Superficiality, it's almost a sin. It's already a lack of character. So be very careful, especially those who are mentors or spiritual directors of others. If they know nothing about that, they must not be mentors. Imagine a melancholic goes to spirit direction to a choleric who knows nothing about this science. The choleric guy will interpret everything in the life of this melancholic, you understand, as a lack of audacity, as a lack of character, as egotism. He will destroy the poor guy. He will kill him. He will not respect his biological foundation. So this is something extremely important. The capacity to distinguish. This is the way the guy is done, is being created. And this is what he has to develop. People that deny the existence of temperament, they are very boring. Because they want you to develop according to a certain model that they have in mind. They don't respect this multiplicity of temperaments that God has wanted for humanity. So they have one model, the spiritual model. They have a vision of what is a perfect person. You have 4 different ways, I would say, of perfection. There is no one way of perfection. There are many ways of human perfections, and these ways are defined by the temperament of people. So if you deny the temperaments, then you have only one way, and this one way is your biological way. If you're choleric, then you will think everyone has to be perfect according to my vision of what perfection is. And my vision is the vision of a choleric. And they're boring. We cannot be on the side of the determinist who deny the spirit and character, and at the same time we cannot be on the side of the voluntarist who deny the biology of human beings. We have to respect both, we have to know both things, and we have to understand that we build character on the foundation of a very specific temperament. And this is the beginning of self-knowledge. It's the beginning of mentoring, it's the beginning of leadership. How do we understand ourselves? How do we understand the others? And how do we communicate with people that have different temperaments than ours? So the science of temperaments help us be aware of our weaknesses and strengths, but also help us understand how do you communicate with people that are different, with people that have different temperaments. It gives you a better understanding of the others. So it helps you communicate and it helps you serve the others much better. But remember, the first important point is that it shows you what are your weaknesses. So it shows you what's going to be the virtue you will have to develop absolutely if you want to achieve self-realization and leadership in your life. This is the key point. The key point is not communication. The key point is self-knowledge, self-improvement. If you are here to serve people, you better know their temperaments. You don't serve a choleric like you serve a phlegmatic. You don't. If you want to help people grow, if you want to be a good mentor, a good leader, a good father, for those people you serve, you have to know them well. And you have to understand what's biological here and what's spiritual. This, Hippocrates, the Hippocrates temperaments, this is 3,000 years of history, guys. It's not Alexander Harvard invention of the last 24 hours. So this is time-tested. This is good stuff because it's time-tested. The virtue is time-tested. It has also 3,000 years of, I would say, of existence, the virtue theory. The temperament theory, the same, 3,000 years of existence. Okay? This is serious science. This is very serious. These are things, in 2,000 years, people will go on speaking about those things, about the character and about the temperaments. So it's basic anthropology, it's forever. And we have to come back to the good books, we have to come back all the time to these guys, because they knew what they were speaking about, and we still go on using their concepts, their notions, because they are right. When we say phlegmatic or choleric, we are speaking about biology. So this has no moral content. You must not be, if you think, I'm a phlegmatic, you must not feel bad. Or I'm a choleric, you must not feel bad with that. It's a biological definition of what you've received. It's not a moral statement. If I say you have no courage, yeah, this is a moral statement. If I say you are imprudent, that's a moral statement. But if I say you're choleric, okay guys, that's good. It can be only good. It's not a moral statement. Okay, so you have to be very sincere with yourself, and when you make some temperament tests, you have to say, okay, I have to think about my first reaction to external stimuli. I must not think about what I do in reality. I need to think about what is my first reaction to this. Because your second reaction is your character. It's what you're going to do in reality. But the first impulsion that you have is biological. So that's why those temperament tests are very complicated. Because when you make a temperament test, you have to think about not what you are doing in reality. Because what you do in reality has a lot to do with your character. You know, the temperament test is very much about what's your first impression, your first feeling, your first movement. So it's not easy at all. It's very, very, very difficult. Many people cannot have a lot of difficulties to get to know their temperament because they have difficulties to make this distinction between their first reaction and what they do in reality. And then they answer to those temperament tests from the point of view of character and not from the point of view of biology. So everything collapsed. And then they don't get to know their temperament well. So you have to be a deep person in order to understand your temperament, because you have to understand, okay, this is my first reaction. I am action-oriented, guys. Even if I do little, I am action-oriented. My nature is directed towards action. My temperament, my character stops me very often, but I am a doer, biologically speaking. You see, so it's not easy, but it's a very important thing to make this distinction. Maybe a good way to get to know our temperament well is to ask our parents. Because when you're a kid, when you're very young, you don't have character yet. You have a potential character, but you have not developed your virtues yet. So you're very much a biological product with a spirit. But the spirit is here, but it's not developed. So what happens? When you're very young, your parents, if they know this science, they can very quickly get to know what's your temperament. Because they see how you still are not using your freedom, you still understand what freedom is about. So for the first years of your life, your parents should get it almost clear what kind of temperament you have. When you do this temperament test, you need to remember one thing. The questions that are asked there are not about your character. They are about your temperament. So it's not about what you are doing in a specific situation. It's about what is your first reaction in a specific situation. To have this test well done, you need to remember, I need to answer the answer has to be about my first reaction. It is not about my second reaction. Your first reaction is a biological reaction. Your first reaction to reality, to external stimuli, is always a biological, physiological reaction. This is what we're interested in when we make this test, because temperament is biology, it is not spirituality. So we are asking you to be very sincere with yourself and not to think about what's your second reaction, because your second reaction is always a spiritual reaction. It corrects all the time the first reaction, because you're a human being, you have a spirituality, and you understand that your first reaction is not necessarily a good reaction. So you build a second reaction on that first reaction. But you need to forget about your character when you make this test. This test is only about your temperament. We want to understand who are you biologically speaking. What is that gift of this talent of temperament that God has given to you? This is what is a temperament test. I repeat, forget about your second reaction, forget about your character, forget about your virtues. This is not a virtue test. This is a temperament